of the regions on the run. A nice topo map is always helpful if it shows gradations by color, the flat and the high and all of this. I want you to notice a couple things here. One is that the Rift Valley, oh, you see that third lake I talked about, which is now gone. The Rift Valley, the low spot, the lowest of the low spots are here. The water just runs in. Yeah. We've been to the Dead Sea 5 times lower than Death Valley. You spent the night at the Sea of Galilee, 2.5 times lower than Death Valley. If you've been to Death Valley, you say, wait a minute. It's a garden spot here with the moisture coming in. This line, which is the border today of the modern state of Israel, is actually the center of the map, intentionally. I want you to take away politics. I know that's hard. Take away politics and just look at the functionality of the landscape. And this becomes because the water's there, a meeting point all the way through. It also becomes a bit of a funnel entering the land. You see up here in the north, on the map, up here in the north, you have mountain ranges, 2 of them, paralleling the coast. You don't, down here you not so much, but up here you do. They're white here because of the elevation and the snow cover in the, y'all should be standing in the front. All right, come on up, come on up.
I have a little tiny booth.
Okay, because of the snow cover. The one is called the Lebanese range, and that's basically Lebanon today. The other one is called the anti-Lebanese, or the opposite Lebanese range. That's this one here. Some of you remember in the 1980s the hostages in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, Terry Anderson and all these guys? Yeah. They were here between. They were between. And kind of a wild no man's land in a sense, politically, one of these buffer zones in between. The Lebanese range ends up as the hill country of Judah. It's all the same range coming down. And that would be, this is the southern end of it in Galilee. The Lebanese range is beyond it. It just kind of keeps going down. The Bekaa Valley turns into the Jordan River Valley, and that's going to be up here, coming down this valley that we came up. And the anti-Lebanese range is the Mount Hermon range that runs away from you. So we're here right now looking at this view. The Hermon range is the anti-Lebanese. On the other side is Syria. On this side is Lebanon. And on this side is Israel. So it's very active. We're going to look into Lebanon at our second stop. We're going to look into Syria on our 4th stop today. All right, that's a bit of an orientation. Now, when you look at the Lebanese and anti-Lebanese ranges, you see that they're not quite parallel. They're kind of V-shaped a little bit. And the traffic, the route, highway route, is either going to be coming down the middle and straight into the land, or it's going to be kind of hugging the edge and coming straight into the land. You stay out of the open desert, you stay off the sea. And what this does is it focuses entrance into the land through this narrow valley, this valley. It focuses entrance in, right there. Think of a funnel, whether you're putting oil in the car or oil in a cooking dish, like so, and then like so, right? It collects a lot, and then all you need is a little piece of something, and you stick it in the funnel, the narrow spot, and what have you done? You've blocked it up, you've controlled the flow, you've whatever, right? This Hula Basin, heading to the Sea of Galilee, is that part of the funnel. And if you happen to live in the bottom, if you're in the pan down below, you want stuff to not come out, you just, in the bottom, you just, boop, nothing can come in, right? Or if you want to somehow control the flow from the top, you can have an opening here, open, shut, and then you're controlling what goes in. Right? Offense, defense. It's going to happen in this valley. When you look at this, you say, oh, it's just one more flat spot in the country. When you look at the big map, you see it's exactly the area between the desert and the mountains and the sea where everybody has to go. So what we have here at the bottom of the funnel, the little spout thing at the bottom, you've got the biggest site in the entire country in terms of ancient times. The site called Hazor. There's 2 letters in there you don't have in English. And t. All right? It's not Hazor, all right? Although some people say. All right? Hazor, you can on somebody when you do that, right? Hazor, that's coronavirus stuff, right? Hazor, there it goes. All right, the biggest one in the country, the biggest site in the country in terms of tells, in terms of ancient sites, Canaanite sites, Israelite sites, and so on, 200 acres. Now for Texas, that's a poor man's backyard, right? But in this land, it's absolutely massive. Let me show you where it goes. We're on the Acropolis, the high point. So it's going to go, past those trees. That's not so much. It's going to go to where the bus started climbing off the road and a little beyond. It's going to go from where we are to that. You see the field? It's a grain field. The green, and all the way at the end, you see a line of trees? That's where it's going to end. You don't have another site like this in this land. Most of the other sites are only this upper part in terms of size. This one rivals, in terms of size, Babylon, Nineveh, those kinds of places in Mesopotamia. It's a massive site. Let me show you in this book. There's a Hazor map. When you get to it, have a look. I know it's maybe a little bit small for you to see right now. I can maybe use my pen.
What page, Dr. Wright?
138. Just so that you can see, we're standing on the Acropolis, the upper city. That's only this much. It's only this is the size of Jericho, the yellow. That's the size of Megiddo, the yellow, where we're going to be in a couple of days. That's the yellow. That's the size of most of the ancient Canaanite sites. It's about 20 acres or less. This is the rest of it, out the wheat field that you see in front of you. All right, it's just massive in size. It's massive in size. We've got the full layers of time here, 21 layers of all the time periods of the Bronze Age and Iron Age, blah, 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 blah. What we have here in particular that makes the site, not just the Bible story, that makes the site particularly significant in this land is that we also have texts, writing that was found here. All right, now at Qumran we have writing that was found. We call them the scrolls. Right? Unless you're a nature lover, and then it's the Dead Sea Squirrels, right? But we call them the scrolls. And there's, thousands of documents and lots of fragments, and it's a tremendous window into the life, the worldview of one rather small Jewish community from a narrow period of time. Yet important because that community and that time reflects on the Gospels. I don't want to diminish the importance of the scrolls, but it's kind of a narrow look into ancient Judaism. What you've got here are texts that were found, some of them out. Wherever you see these piles of rock in the middle of the wheat field, if you were the wheat farmer, you would have gotten rid of those long ago. This is where the site was excavated in the 1950s. And those excavation areas have to be preserved. So pile of rocks still. So some out there, some up here, some people walking along doing this. And you find a text under the ground. Now these texts are not parchment, they're clay. They're clay. The earliest writing form was clay, tablets. You take a reed, you cut the end, you have a wedge-shaped, and you start to make wedge-shaped letters or symbols in there. It's called cuneiform. You've got one of several shown in your book. You can look at it closer if you want. And we found here now about 20 Each one's about this big. You say, that's nothing like 1,000 of the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? But what we find is this. What we found is that they cover about a 500-year time period. Let's say from Abraham to Moses. So the half a millennia before Israel enters the land as a nation. And they happen to be not just religious documents about how you should live, but everyday life stuff. We've got a legal tablet, a law case. We have tablets about economic activity, like grocery store receipts. We've got, we have a mathematical tablet, a multiplication table in cuneiform. We've got as well some like mythic and religious texts as well. Now what that tells us is there are people here who were literate, who knew how to read and write, and that there was activity going on that needed writing. So higher business, math, legal, social situation, everyday life, and a very complex high level was going on here. And we've got texts that are windows into all of that. In other words, real life. It's a much broader look at Canaanite life. Now, we have similar texts that were found in Mesopotamia. In fact, we have hundreds of thousands found in Mesopotamia. Sometimes 100,000 at one place. All right, altogether maybe 1 million texts of all kinds. And some of them mention this place, Hazor, as being on the trade route for tin. You need tin to mix with local copper to get bronze. And that's your weapon of choice, and so on. Tin comes from England and Spain. And it comes through the bottom of the funnel and it goes up to Mesopotamia. And this place is mentioned on that tin trade route. We've got documents, writing here that can be read by those people as part of the correspondence.
So tin comes as the metal or as
Tin
the
comes
ore?
as the, I don't know where it was refined.
Okay.
I don't know where it was refined. If it was refined and came as the metal or came as the, probably it was refined where it was mined. You also have very sophisticated cultures in Europe at this time, so probably. I can't answer the question. Ingots of tin, they say, that's like a thing like this, so it's probably refined. Yeah. At least that's how we translate the term. It's probably refined. What this means is when you're looking at this site, you have a window into what life was like on the empire level. I mean, big Canaanite level. When you look at this site on every level, it's everything the world had to offer. Number one.
Time period?
Thank you. About 500 years, let's say Abraham to Joshua. So to be more specific, 19th through 13th centuries BC, Middle Bronze II through Late Bronze II, if those words mean anything. It's that section of time. Abraham to Joshua, basically. One of the large Canaanite city-states.
Where are those clay pieces?
They're in, the Antiquities Authority has them. They've been translated. There's a whole book that you can buy on them. Cuneiform in Canaan, it's called. And they're in the Antiquities Authority has them. That's a branch of the government. And some of them are in the Israel Museum, in the archaeology wing. More come up, I shouldn't say all the time, but every year or two another one comes to light. And it's just adding to art. Now, the other cities in Mesopotamia of this size and importance, all of them had certain things that have been found. You know, the temples and the palaces and stuff. And the library, the archive, the place where these tablets were stored. You're doing business for the temple or for the palace, or there's a copy put there, like a tax record put there, you might say. And what you've got then are buildings, rooms that we've found in these other places with thousands of, tens of thousands of tablets. Sometimes they're like lined up on the shelf. When that is found at Hazor, that's going to be a big day. Now notice I didn't say if. It has to be here. The city cannot not have that. Has to be here. The fact that we find tablets from 500 years of all genres in a very sophisticated script and language tells you there were schools here and there was storage of material here. It has to be here.
So Paul, I mean, these cities like associated with each other?
Very
such
much
that
so.
The officials knew
Yes.
how to do these
Whether they
things?
were actually politically under the same control or not is a second story. There's international trade, just like there is today. Just like there is today. We might not like Putin, but we can sell to him and buy a bit, and that's what's going. Very much so. It ends up that the Mesopotamian language becomes the trade language, like English today. But down here, these are written in let's say, an Akkadian with a Canaanite accent. So you know that they're local, the way that they speak. Yeah. Like English with an Indian accent. You know what it's like. Yeah.
Just overall, you talked about,
Yeah.
it has to be here, but
Yeah.
no one's actively excavating today. What drives such an important
Okay.
piece of history, and what are the economics of it? Why haven't we seen more? I saw some yesterday going on.
Yeah. You mean the digging?
Yeah.
The digging. All right. Right. You segued into my next point. All right. I've got like seats for 5 people here if somebody wants to sit. Otherwise, I've been laying down all night, right? So I want to be up a bit. Look, archaeology, digging for the past is important on its own academic right. And you can dig any place for anything. But when you've got a nation, an emerging nation of Israel, the modern state of Israel, who has ancestral identity here, you want to help to create the ethos of the modern nation by pulling the past and pulling up the past. As you pull it up, you get a lot of other layers too of a lot of other people. And the archaeologists, because they're academics and less biased than maybe some others, pay attention to all of these and should equally, and I think they probably do. But they know that the visitors, the tourists from outside, and certainly the Israelis on the inside, are mostly interested in their own layer. Yeah? Or if other layers, how they affect our layer. And so you have excavation as part of the national agenda of the country. There's a government ministry under which the Department of Antiquities fits. It's the national level government money and effort and control and all of that stuff.
Would some of that too be just further verification and validation of all of the things we say as to why
Yes.
we're the rightful
Part of it is there.
citizens?
You've got objective scholarship and you've got real people doing it. And the biases are always going to come through. Remember I said Kathleen Kenyon didn't like the Jews? And so she's going to not look at that evidence. The Israelis know that they're being condemned in the archaeological community for digging for their own past. And you'll hear them voice, no, we're not. And it's an interesting debate.
And yet they
It's an
look to
interesting
improve the
debate.
veracity of their own claims through.
Yeah, that's, of course, you know that your own people are interested in their layer. You know that. You go to Jordan, you see the same thing. It's all Roman and Islamic. And the Iron Age stuff they don't care about. A lot of sites there need to be dug. You can understand it, and then we have to look at the data and see where it goes.
Especially with all the conflict.
Right. Now, yesterday we mentioned the name Yigal Yadin. He's the general of the Israeli War of Independence, who was the leading military figure that Israel won the battle in 1948. We talked about him at Masada. His father was a scholar, and the father was the one who read the first Dead Sea Scrolls. So it was a nice combination there. Laura told you about him. Now there's a middle story. The first site that Yadin dug was here in the 1950s. He's the one that's responsible for these piles of stones and digging a lot of different places, including up on top. He was digging in the 1950s and he found a lot of evidence of rich Canaanite culture of all kinds of things. Here you've got basalt, standing stones of you can't see it very well, but when you look at your book, of a local religious shrine, standing stones. One is carved with a crescent moon and hands raised up praying to the moon god. One is a statue of a man like this where you put your offerings. A lot of stuff of Canaanite art and architecture, some of which was influenced by the Syrians and some of which was influenced by Egypt. So it's a mixed zone. And he found some of these cuneiform tablets. And he figured that the primary institution, either the temple or the palace, would be up top, and that's where you should dig to find the archive. So he was digging on top, and he found some things related to Solomon that I also want to show you in a bit. But he didn't find the Canaanite stuff that would be responsible for the texts. Then he went to Masada. But his student, Amnon ben Tor, then he died. Yadin died. But his student then, Amnon ben Tor, came back around the year 1990 with Yadin's notes and energy, and he said, we're going to find the archive. So they went up here and they dug. I'll take you there as well. And they dug and they found a massive Canaanite building, which seems to be the temple. It was the same floor plan as a building in Mesopotamia, a place called Alalach, where they found an archive. So we said, let's dig the same room, the corresponding room. Everybody was excited. They dug that year to the floor, nothing. Now, what Ben Tor is thinking, and this is now a 30-year-long active dig. It's not digging today, but in the summertime, it's still an active dig. Hebrew University. Now they're digging this section.
Oh, okay.
Where they find a gateway connection between the lower and the upper tell with a lot of fun stuff. And Ben Tor is now thinking that there's a palatial gateway complex somewhere on this slope where the archive is. And I don't know why they allowed the Park Service to pour concrete here, because they should be digging this whole slope out. It's likely, I would say, between just over here and just where that tree is. In this area is probably where it is someplace. When it is found, you're going to hear about it. And you're all going to want to learn Akkadian so that you can translate some of these and figure out what's happening, the full orb view of the city that Joshua conquered.
But also an image of history
Exactly.
through a huge amount of time.
This is our best, it's going to be our best witness into what not just into ancient Israel, but to the context,
Yeah, that's what I meant,
the larger Canaanite half a millennium thing is going to be here. It's going to be tremendous when it's found. Yes.
When did the when did the tell get telled the last time? And when did it?
Persian period.
The Persian period.
Persian period. I think here Hellenistic. Persian, basically Hellenistic a little bit in the end of the BC.
Okay.
Not much up on top.
So with this connection with Mesopotamia here,
Yep. Yep.
similarities, when you read the Old Testament, Canaanites are really presented as not just pagan,
That's right.
but a crude, backward people.
Exactly.
Possibly.
Exactly. Worthy to be taken out. Right? I mean, that's the image we get.
But Canaanites practiced infant sacrifices as well, right?
We're not sure. Maybe. We're not sure how to read those texts, actually. Maybe.
Why would Abraham have had the urge to do so?
Maybe
if
that's
it wasn't what
I don't know.
his neighbors were doing?
I don't know.
I
Maybe it was that
Yeah, because the Lord told us.
deviant.
That simplifies it.
I don't know.
In
I
a
don't.
religious way that
Yeah.
is not practical.
Yeah, yeah.
There was some
Godfrey,
reason.
I don't know. The answer to your question is I don't know. But I think I know where you're going with your comment. And maybe I don't, but it seems to be a very well-developed, sophisticated people here. In a lot of ways, a very
It doesn't
powerful
make sense
people
for it
here.
Not to be, since it's a
That's right.
post.
Yeah.
Very much so.
It's
Very much so.
Any crossroads is going to be more developed than the other. I mean,
That's right. In other
All
words,
that
there's
knowledge and material goes through.
people coming through all the time.
there's a lot to admire here, actually.
But religiously, just from a sociological point, the religion of the East, meaning Mesopotamia, seemed
Yeah.
to be more advanced.
Yeah.
It seemed to be more crude here. Is that just an Old Testament bias?
Maybe. Maybe the Old Testament is going to be speaking about this place as not as advanced as Israel coming in. They're not gonna speak about the sophistication. They're gonna speak about the reason why they're no longer here. So it's a partial view.
Okay.
It's a partial view. The excavations here and at Megiddo and other places already show us that the Canaanites were pretty competent in what they were doing.
Well, that might explain why the temptation to absorb some of the Canaanite culture
Exactly.
was so hard for northern Israel to resist.
Bingo for Israel in the first century, for the Hellenistic culture, and for us today for Western culture.
Yeah.
And for Abraham and Lot.
Exactly.
Lot is
Exactly.
very, very clear.
Exactly.
But I think the whole thing God is dealing with in regard to Isaac is that Abraham, who's very spiritual, I think his influence, they have a king, we want one too. They do this, why aren't we doing this?
Abraham's an
And
interest.
after decades of living amongst people, we start absorbing.
You're going to start absorbing.
We're thinking, especially if they get luckier than you are. Ooh,
I
why
think-
is God smiling on them and not on me?
Sean Frayne called that the grudging admiration that Israel had for the other nations. Grudging admiration. It's sort of like what Texans fans have for the Patriots. You'd sort of like to have been them, but there's no way you ever want to admit it. Right? Right? You're sort of, but you don't. You get that. That was. That's right. That's right. Grudging admiration. Sean Frayne was a New Testament scholar. A JUC grad took his position at the University of Dublin. So there's another JUC success story. Abraham is I think he's meant to be, we have to read him within the culture, and we have to read him as coming out of the culture at the same time. He's a very interesting character.
Because Abraham's a monotheist, and he comes into a very powerful polytheistic community.
Environment, very much so.
But he came from where they had household gods there, many household gods.
They have household gods here.
That's what I'm saying. He left that culture to become, to hear the word of God and be led to another place here. Okay?
The bigger question is,
And he found the same thing.
there's always a bigger question, why does God bring him here? What is it about this land that prompts him to come here? Because in a sense, you find there's a reflection of home here, but yet we're going to find out, it's going to be different enough to do things here you cannot do in
That's only
Mesopotamia.
the first step
Yeah.
in the way.
Genesis 12.
It's to
Ju-
put them in the crossroads of the trade.
It's part of it.
To
That's part of
spread
it.
the word.
That's part of it. That's part of it. That's part of it, yeah. The narrative in the book of Joshua, the front part of the book, is the conquest narrative. I don't want to talk about the blood and guts and the why does God allow it and all of that. I'll let your competent pastors back home wrestle with. All right?
Thanks.
Thanks. You're
Appreciate
welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You got it.
I'm retired.
You're retired.
Okay, Ray.
We'll leave that. You know it's debated. Yeah, you know you can come down on all kinds of things. I just want to leave it alone. Instead, like at Joshua, look at the story on the landscape, and it makes sense geographically. Why he would take Jericho first and access into the hills and make sure you have a spring of water that you can use as a base camp and take out the Canaanites behind you and push on up into the Gerizim mountain where you can do the blessings and all of this stuff. Hazor the same way. Joshua's already conquered the south around Jerusalem. He's already established the covenant in the middle mountains of Ebal and Gerizim. The only thing left is this northern gateway section beyond the Jezreel Valley, the area that has the very strong local Canaanite and international presence. It's the most dangerous part. And we read this in chapter 11. I just want to read a bit. It came about that when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard about what Joshua did. Jabin, king of Hazor, Jabin, that's the way it shows up in English. We have in some of these documents out here the name Jabin. They pronounced it Ibni. It's the same name. It's not the same guy, It's like saying Pastor Bob. There's going to be a bunch of them, right? But at least we know it's a local name. At least we know it's not a made-up name, right? It's a common name. When he heard about it, he sent, and I'm going to read a list of places. He sent to the king of Madon, whose name was Yobab. Must have been from Alabama, right? The king of Madon, Yobab, to the king of Shimron, Akshaph, hill country in the north, south of Kinneret, the Shvelah, the heights of Dor to the west. He names all these places where the kings came from, who are going to be allied with him to fight against Joshua. All right? Now, when you look at a map like this one, which you already had an opportunity to mark with Michelle Hunt, did she tell you that she's related to the guy, the Lanier of the Theological Library? Did she tell you that?
No.
That's his uncle. That's her uncle. Yeah. What's his first name, Lanier?
Mark.
Mark.
Mark. Yeah. All right. She didn't say that. You see? I'll tell on her. You've marked this map already. The heartland of Israel down here, you see the Jezreel Valley system, the big flatlands here, a lot of easy access back and forth. Hazor is way up here. And what Jabin does is, there are natural passes through the valleys. I won't point them out. You've marked them on your map, or we'll have a chance to. There are natural passes through these hills. Natural strategic passes, which all come up to the funnel. And he picks the king at each one. That pass, this pass, that pass, that pass. It's not just a random list of places. Each one holds a strategic spot that comes up to here. It's very deliberate. And he calls them all together, says Joshua's coming, and they all agree to meet at one place to fight Joshua. Now, where they agree to meet, let me put the map down here if you can. John, I'll let you hold this side of it. Come on up here with me. All right, there we go. You're up here. Here. Joshua's down here. You can go this way. You can come this way. You can come through here. You can come through here. You can maybe do an end around here. And so he picks all of these kings, each one strategic. They're all going to meet at one spot to face Joshua down. All right? Maybe here, maybe here, maybe here. Guess where they go? They go up there, up in the hills. They go off the map up here to the place called the Waters of Merom. They go up here, the Waters of Merom. What was he thinking? All right, they go up here. Now, how do I know that? How do I know that? It says here, they all agreed, they camped at the Waters of Merom to fight against Israel. This is the chariot force that they have. They're going to go up there instead of in the valleys. What was he thinking? The only thing that we can figure out is, we know that Joshua already was doing some things that were maybe not quite typical warfare. At Jericho, he'd march around, not do anything, march around, try to psychological warfare the guy out. At the next battle, we didn't talk about it, but when he fought against Ai, some of you say Ai. If you're a pirate, you say Ai, right? He actually laid an ambush behind the city and sent a few people out. And then, all right? At the next site, Gibeon, he actually came up by marching at the nighttime when you don't expect an army to attack you in the crack of dawn. So he's doing things that are not normal battle fighting. And Jabin, who heard about it, probably is going to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my army up here. Joshua's going to come on up. He's going to come into Hazor. He's going to say, oh, it's mine. And he's going to, like the Romans when they take Masada, grab a lot of booty, but that is expendable, and he's going to get drunk at the site, and then we're going to come down when he's prone, and we're going to get him. Seems to be that. The Lord says to Joshua, don't worry. So Joshua then, verse 7, and all the people with him came upon the waters of Merom suddenly and attacked Jabin. Joshua snuck around the other side and attacked him. And Joshua, who's used to fighting on feet, don't have chariots, can fight, knows how to fight up there. Jabin, who uses chariots, can't do anything. And so the battle is taken quickly. And then it says, the Lord delivered them as far as Sidon, pushed them back. And then Joshua, verse 10, turned back. That's the verb right there. Turned back to capture Hazor. You don't turn back if you're down there pressing on. You have to be there to turn back. The geography is perfect in the story. It's absolutely perfect. And then captured Hazor. Hazor used to be the head of all those kingdoms. He struck everybody down. Israel didn't burn any city that stood on its tell except Hazor alone. Verse 13. There you have the word tell in the Bible. It says Joshua, right, thanks, burned Hazor. Took out the Canaanite city. Took it down. And then this becomes then the beginning of an Israelite place. He's now taken out the threat, and he's established Israelite roots up here in the north, in the Galilee. What you'd expect to find then is burn layer here from the time of Joshua. Guess what we find? Burn layer from the time of Joshua. I want to show that to you. All right? Burn layer from the time of Joshua. All right? There's a bunch of it.
Why would this have been the only site burned?
That's a very important question, and we can't answer that for sure. Jericho was, but it was a kind of a first fruits whole live offering to God. It doesn't count in the same way. And the next one, I was, but that wasn't a mount. It wasn't a tell. Everything else doesn't seem to be burned. We don't know why. It could be that the conquest was not as bloody as we're led to believe. It could be that it was a little more gradual elbowing than it was smashing. It could be that Joshua showed up and the king said, okay, I give up, like at Gibeon. This verse tells us that I'm helping you, right? This verse tells us that the blood and guts that we typically associate with Joshua maybe wasn't as much blood and guts as we think all along. He took the land maybe by other means as well, not just burning cities. It also means this. This one, he took it because it seems to be the capital. And when this one falls, the rest are going to say, okay.
So the whole concept of he burned the city, we want to think, okay, he scorched the entire city.
Probably not.
Maybe he scorched
The White House, the palace, the Capitol building.
the temple predominantly.
Something like that, exactly.
Especially if naughty stuff was going on there.
Exactly.
The Israelis, the Jews, didn't know how to live in fortified cities, right?
They hadn't been living in fortified cities.
So to leave a fortified city intact, invited Babylon and other people to come and take it again.
Reclaim their rights.
Then how do you take it back? If there are walls to protect your enemy that invades.
I think there's a lot of factors going on here. I think the baseline of what you said is absolutely correct. You like the British in 1812, you go for the capital, you go for the juggler. And in this case it was Hazor. The other cities are going to comply around that are dependent on Jabin. Now they're going to have to be dependent on Joshua. And if Joshua gets the temple, the palace, the great institution, and sort of enough of the thing, the Babylonians are going to say, oops, you see. Remember, this is, especially, Godfrey, if, and we don't know if this is the case, it might have been, Joshua says, we'll let the trade keep going through. Now the money goes here. And then Babylon they don't care if it's Canaanites or Israel, as long as the trade goes through. And you're okay on it. They're only coming back when they're strong enough to actually push to Egypt and want to incorporate this land into Babylon. That's going to be only much later. So if Joshua plays it right, Israel's going to have a really nice foundation here on which to build a kingdom.
And he got rid of any temptation to besiege. There was nothing to besiege.
There's not a, he's trying to arrange the pieces on the board differently. Exactly. Yeah.
So this might not have been as much blood and guts as we're used to associating with that. But it says here that they didn't spare anyone that breathed. So they killed everybody. You don't get much more blood and guts than that, right?
I'm not, yes. Let me, first of all, yes. I'm not sure if that's literal or making a point.
Okay.
You know,
But Ray
Tom
will
Brady
tell you-
wins every game he plays, this guy. We hate him. Every game he plays, he wins. You know, it's maybe that kind of a statement.
Yeah.
It's maybe that kind of a statement. There's enough that they did to make their point. I think you have to read it that way.
Everybody fell for the generic.
Something
everybody.
like that. Something like that. Something like that. I think you have to read it that way, realistically. The Jabin dynasty continues, but in exile. And in the book of Judges, we have Jabin who says, I'm king of Hazor, but he's living in the Jezreel Valley. And then he tries to fight Israel again and loses again. It's a different Jabin later in exile. So it's not like they're completely gone. They're still persistent and trying to,
Okay.
you know, Muhammad Ali lost once in a while, but he always came back. And that's kind of Jabin. He's going to try to come back and fight again.
Do we know anything about future plans of when they're going to start digging here again?
They dig every year, every summer,
Every summer.
including 2020 and 2021.
And,
Yeah, it's an ongoing dig.
and you're saying this is kind of the spot we're
They're
looking at right now?
focusing there and a little bit further on this section. You don't dig huge amounts all at once. There's too much stuff coming up. You have to process it in the off season. The dig season itself is only 6 weeks, something like that. And come back in June, and you'll see them all here digging. Well, we'll